I still see today that up to 70% of most employees are still doubtful to tell their supervisor they've used AI in the execution of their task. There's still the fear, despite the fact that most companies say we want AI. If I tell my boss, then he thinks I'm probably lazy or not that competent because I need AI, which means business leaders need to be part of the transformation as well, because you have to model this.
Hi, I'm Paul, and this is Great Expectations, the podcast that helps you make sense of AI's growing role in the way we work. These days, conversations aren't just between people, but they're also increasingly between people and AI. That raises big questions about trust, connection, and what good leadership looks like in an AI-enabled workplace. Today's guest is someone I've been really looking forward to speaking with, David de Cremer. He's the Dunton Family Dean and professor at Northeastern University's DeMoore McKim School of Business, and founder of the Center on AI Technology for Humankind. He's also the author of The AI Savvy Leader, a must-read for anyone guiding teams through AI transformation. In this episode, we'll explore how to implement AI in ways that align with your values, how leaders can build trust through change, and how to know if your AI strategy is actually working for your business and your people. Firstly, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm really excited to speak to you.
Thank you for having me.
I think right now there's this huge narrative around humans versus AI and the human-AI interface, and yet if we zoom out from the scale of it all and zoom in on just what do we do now in 2025, there's a sort of really important role that we're seeing in how AI can start to augment human capabilities rather than replacing anything. And you've spoken about that quite a bit in the AI Savvy Leader and other pieces of writing. So I'd love to get your take on sort of what's the here and now that we can be doing with AI to enhance human capabilities rather than having a doomsday approach.
It's an important question. Still today, if you listen to most business people, CEOs, especially in the C-suite or in boards, they will still use the narrative of, is AI a threat to your job? And there's several reasons for this, because especially leaders at the top, they still don't understand AI very well. They see it still as something magical, whereas in reality, AI is a tool, and it's a tool that we have to use. So in that sense, for companies, for businesses, to make the best use of AI is to use it as a tool and see where it can be used to augment rather than replace. Second thing is jobs are a collection of tasks. So AI is very good at doing tasks, but a job requires more. You have to bring the tasks together, you have to assign meaning to it, you have to negotiate, you have to influence people, you have to work with teams. It is not really about AI simply taking over because it doesn't understand these social dynamics. It can't work with these. So you still need a human workforce to deliver. People are starting to become more aware of it. And I think the biggest input to why people are becoming aware of this is really that, as you've noticed in the last 2 years, the return on investment when it comes down to applying or adopting AI in business has been relatively low compared to the investments we make in AI. We throw so much money at the development of AI, and the tech companies are leading in this. Someone like a Mark Zuckerberg of Meta, he believes just throw more money at it and AI will be better. So the focus is completely on input. Now, for a company, what matters is, are we more effective? Are we more productive? Are we increasing efficiency? Are we producing more? And in addition, the human workforce will still have to deliver this. Then the question really becomes, it's not simply about replacing. It's about how the human workforce can use it. And along with this comes a really important realization. AI is not a strategy. AI is there to help you achieve your strategic goals. And this is where the shift is happening right now, in my view, that people are becoming aware of this. Now, companies will realize just adopting AI is not making yourself more competitive. How do you make yourself competitive? By knowing, first of all, what is your organization about? Who are your stakeholders? What's your strategy? What are your goals? What's your purpose? So for leaders to move on and focus on augmentation, there needs to be a realization where they can align a certain AI comprehension with their knowledge about their organizational purpose and their stakeholders. If you can align those, you'll see that AI adoption actually starts with a business question. What is it that you need to achieve? and how can AI help in achieving that?
How do you think you create some type of structure to that? Because there's so many layers. There's the C-suite, the board. You've got people on all levels across all different types of departments, whether it's finance or legal, marketing, R&D, engineering, and I'm talking about a medium to large size company now. And then you get every sort of strata and layer of management coming through with that in such a rapidly changing space where everyone's half trying to figure out what it can be used for, half trying to figure out what's the best application for it. And then you combine all of those layers of management, day-to-day work tasks and functionality and talk about, okay, now we're going to write the strategy, as though it's like something that you put down and then there's a line in the sand. And from here on forth, we are an AI leading company. But in reality, it's a lot more complex than that. So how do you advise people to break it down into something more bite-sized to be able to take it at the pace of change that it's operating at right now?
It all starts, in my view, again, to have the AI savviness. So where do you start? I always outline 3 ideas why business leaders need to be involved, why and how. So first of all, it's bringing the idea of AI as a reality to the work floor. Why is AI needed? That's why I always say business leaders today in the AI era, they become narrators. They need to be AI savvy enough to bring AI in the context of their business question, and at the same time bring AI experts and business experts at different levels, R&D, marketing, sales, and finance together, that they communicate and can collaborate. That's the first step. Once that idea is there, the second dimension is hit, which is bringing the idea of AI to life within the job context. So that means you need to create a kind of cultural change where you allow sandboxes for experimentation. So that's why most AI projects start as small pilot projects. This should not be in isolated ways. Each department can have their own sandbox, and business leaders have to keep aligning it with the main business question. This means you need to install a climate of failure, which is fine, but also flat communication so that there's quickly feedback and that people can see this works, this doesn't work. Now, the interesting part here is it's participative, so it increases commitment to the new vision where AI is a part of. At the same time, they're experimenting within their job, so you're actually building already the jobs of the future. I see so many companies always waiting for a whole list of, oh, there's going to be new jobs, but we're waiting for the list of jobs to arrive. Well, basically, no. Each company basically is building those jobs themselves. But you need to work on this principle that I just said. You need to have that learning mechanism and quick feedback. The feedback aligns very well with how AI basically works. If you think about ChatGPT, prompts are reinforcement, feedbacks. So the same thing in your pilot studies and that's why teams have to be involved, it's a collective learning process because you get feedback much quicker so you can adjust. Because this is one of the big problems that we see is if AI adoption is only seen as an engineering project, it's only done by people in IT departments, by tech people. They don't know the business side. It's so isolated that it never creates value across the entire company. So that's why these pilot projects are so important and our leaders so important to be the narrators to bring both business and tech together. And once you've got this culture going, the final step, now can the job with AI create value? So to facilitate that value creation process, it comes back to your original business question. Who are your stakeholders? Because don't forget, everything goes so quickly. Most businesses don't use the latest of the latest AI advances. Most of the AI is developed within a lab where there's hardly any stakeholders, so risks are low. But once you bring AI into business, you have different stakeholders, so it becomes risk management. You can't run the risk to harm the interest of different stakeholders. From that point of view, the real value creation is how you bring it to the different stakeholders. Just as an example, what I see all the time in organizations is companies are struggling internally to have employees accept the AI and integrate it across the board. But at the same time, they've already told clients, we're undergoing a digital transformation and we're going to bring AI to you in terms of customer service. The very simple principle is here, You will never use AI more advanced than the AI you're using within the company. It will always be less advanced because you need to be sure it's a high risk management, and you need to be sure you can deal with it internally and that it's integrated in how your organization operates in pursuit of the goals and the purpose of that organization. So those are 3 levels. And as you can see, it very much parallels a kind of change management process that leads to meaning, acceptance, and use of it.
Do you think that we should be accepting right now that there's going to be, let's say, like a 20% dip in productivity as we learn and figure that out? Because if I'm trying to manage this in an organization, there's a degree of risk, as you say, that's involved. There's a lot of trust that's got to be sort of paved in that change management. But there's also potentially a lot of fear from employees around this idea or concept of replacement. Do you sort of, as a manager, empower your teams to go, it's fine if you spend half a day trying to figure something out, now you know that doesn't work? Or how do you go about sort of accepting a short-term loss to be able to actually lean into a long-term gain, and at the same time empower your teams to not feel that this is like a fear-based implementation of a new tool?
That's a very good question, because if we say it's change management, that means you're changing something. That means there's going to be a dip in terms of how efficient the organization will work. You have to expect that it's a J curve, the change. It's going to happen. You can't ignore it. Your best practices where you don't need AI, those need to stay in place and the investments need to stay there. So you can't go too fast in changing everything without knowing whether it works and it's integrated. That's why I mentioned, while this is happening within your organization, you can never overpromise to customers, oh, this is the kind of AI we're going to use, or use exactly the same level of AI adoption for employees as for customers, because you will have a problem. Because customers are not forgiving. They're not going to say, it's fine, you're trying to adjust to it, I'll give you that benefit of a doubt. No, of course not. So it's really going to be trying to balance out the best practices and the experimentation with AI. That's going to be extremely important. Going back then, okay, who makes those decisions? Who leads this? Yeah, those are business leaders again. Those are not tech experts. Business leadership needs to be seen as supportive of trying this. So I see many companies where they say, okay, we want to be AI driven. And like you said, it may come across as it's fear-based because it's a demand. There's no buy-in. If that's the case, you'll run the risk that people will not use it in the most efficient way possible, because they don't understand the meaning very well. That's one issue. The second issue is, I still see today that up to 70% of most employees are still doubtful to tell their supervisor they've used AI in the execution of their task. That's because norms and expectations are not clear. There's still the fear, despite the fact that most companies say we want AI. If I tell my boss, then he thinks I'm probably lazy or not that competent because I need AI, which means leaders need to lead by example. Business leaders need to be part of the transformation as well. So when I set the collective learning process, as a leader, as a team leader at every level, leaders talk the walk and are part of it. That doesn't mean you need to be the AI expert, but a certain level of AI savviness is needed, and some openness, because you have to model this.
In terms of that with the AI savvy leader, do you have an idea of when you see people who are talking the talk and walking the walk? I'm sure you can pick up quickly when someone's just throwing AI in as every third or fourth word to a sentence versus actually like modeling the behaviors that will truly drive successful implementations. So I guess the question is, what would an AI leader who others should be scared of look like?
I've started paying more attention to language as well. And I found one really interesting effect is when business leaders say we're an AI-driven company, most of the time their AI projects do fail to be integrated well because they see AI as a strategy. Because AI-driven means AI drives everything. So it's a strategy in itself, which is completely wrong. But you have people who also talk about we're an AI-enabled company. I like that much more because those show a certain awareness of it's enabling us to do the business that we've always been doing, but in more efficient, optimized ways. Those you can see, those are people who are asking the right questions or much more business savvy and tech savvy at the same time. So one thing that I saw consistently is being humble and very open-minded. It's all about learning. AI-savvy leaders engage in lifelong learning. This goes back to your earlier point when you said AI advances so quickly. This is where it's useful to stay updated on what are the big trends that are changing. So you need to invest in yourself there. The second thing is people who are able to build climates, you've already mentioned the word of trust, of psychological safety, because failure needs to be seen as feedback. But that comes along only if trust exists, of course, because those are the sandboxes. The innovation itself is taking place there. That touches upon the soft skills that people talk so much about and seeing that value in it. Because if you have to work together, get feedback, collaboration is essential. So basically, emotional intelligence, understanding where people suffer, where their difficulties are, and establishing that collaboration, those leaders who can bring that together, that people do communicate, and then at that moment when you can do this, you really delegate then to tech experts.
It's really interesting the amount of data as well that's out there around decisions made in silos around AI, or sort of when you look at a C-suite level of management, how the AI decision maker or AI officer, whatever position is being implemented, is usually the furthest degree of separation away from the rest of that C-suite. And it does just seem like a silo. But at the same time, I think people are probably thrown by trying to separate the signals from the noise when it comes to how do I understand and orient or qualify success versus failure, or what's an irrelevant signal and what's the right signal to understand whether we're making progress on this. How do you start to look at those quantifications in a meaningful way?
Remember that I said earlier, we're so focused on inputs. How much money do we throw at it? How accurate is the model? It seems like that's the KPI for tech companies. Oh, this is a very accurate model, very predictive. Well, that's great, but then we buy it. It has to reveal something in terms of results for a business. Do we sell more? Are we productive? Do we get more clients or keep our clients in a competitive market? Those KPIs in a way don't change, but people forget that. My mantra again, AI is seen as a strategy. That's not true because everyone uses AI and it's usually the same AI. So the question of measuring success is one that doesn't get enough attention. And that leads to a lot of noise, but noise also in saying we are successful. But what does that mean? Most surveys are based on perceptions. We ask leaders in companies, are you successful? Yes, I think so. Oh, well, 90% of companies say they're successful. It really means nothing. So that's why in my book, I also say when we talk about AI as augmenting, AI as that catalysator, AI as enabling your business, you need to look at it holistically. And holistically means it's much more than simply the return on investment in terms of finances. It's really about, are you augmenting the skills that are most useful in making your company succeed? So you need to know already as a good leader, what are the skills and the competencies required for your industry, for your business? And can you augment those? So that's one measure already for yourself to see whether the alignment is there. Because when the alignment is there, you're going to produce results. And it's more holistically as well, because like I said, it may well be if it's demanded because we're an AI-driven company and most of these companies will spend 70, 80, up to 90% of their tech budgets to simply buying the AI and then realize, oh, do we have the infrastructure? Are we equipped for it? Do we have the right talents on the right positions? Are our people trained? And suddenly they think we have no budget left for that. It's holistic. You need to look at the human, the AI, your culture, and your stakeholders. Are your customers happy with this? How is this being seen in terms of your corporate social responsibility towards society? These things you also need to measure, especially if it's a long-term strategy. AI needs to be a long-term strategy because remember, it's a J-curve. It takes some time to adjust to it, to learn, and then create value. All those levels need to be measured. And also the communication. Are you bringing it in the organization? How are you dealing with your customers at the same time? I'll give an example. There's a lot of consultancy companies today. They're helping you with your AI adoption projects. Let's say the big five. Now, if you look at 2.5 years, 3 years ago, how much do you think in terms of percentage of their revenue came from AI for those big five?
I would imagine it would be quite low, sub 5%.
Very good guess, even less, between 0 and 2%. Today, it's 20%. So this means that in just 2.5 years, 20% of their revenue now comes from AI projects. And what I see happening is they help you with your AI adoption projects in terms of making the teams ready, but they don't work outside of your company in terms of seeing whether customers accept it. So other measures that you need to see is how far has your AI adoption worked within the organization? Is there a balance with maintaining customer loyalty? And once it starts working for you, are you able then to translate it and uplift the customer service? None of these consultancy companies are thinking about that.
Agentic AI is something that you've lent into in the new book, and it seems to be the area on a heat map that has the most focus right now. What are your sort of early signals of the right and wrong ways? Because with that, everybody's talking about adaptive agentic models specific to a certain company or vertical, or it acting as a major accelerant within a business. Is that something that you think is us trying to run before we've learned to walk or necessarily crawl?
It's a yes and no, in my view. As a company, what you want to see is augmentation mainly. That doesn't mean there's no automation. This is where we enter AI agents or agentic AI. AI agents, they can do boring, repetitive, mundane tasks. They can do this autonomously. So an AI agent is an autonomous agent. It's actually part of an augmentation structure. What you do on a daily basis, which is repetitive, if you can automate this, in a way, the automation is augmenting you because you're saving time. Now, whether it's really augmenting you is how you're going to use that time. Are you going to use that time to uplift yourself, upskill yourself, and focus on the tasks and elements in your job that are directly responsible for productivity? That's when we're gaining, yeah? Well, companies have a certain way of looking at, well, you save time, let's do more of the same. And this is opposite of what AI gurus have always been saying. AI is going to liberate us from the mundane, repetitive tasks so everyone can be creative. And the creativity is going to provide the innovation, and that's going to bring business forward. Well, most companies actually don't. They don't manage their company like that. They just don't use that time to uplift people. But here's a problem. How many creative jobs can you actually have? If you look today at how many jobs are really creative, 15% max. This addresses that issue of what are the jobs of the future? Don't wait for a list to arrive. You're working on this yourself. So you have to learn to integrate again and experiment and do the collective learning. The second thing is AI agents, and this relates to, yes, you're right. It may be a little bit, we're running before we're walking. It may be a little bit of a myth as well. Autonomous artificial intelligence can only function when you can reduce risks. Huh? In companies, it's risk management. So that means AI works perfectly when all information is available. So that means it's a closed system. So when you see when AI agents work best is in tasks within a system that's closed, meaning hardly anything can go wrong because all the parameters are known. It is so repetitive that there's hardly any risk for things going wrong. Those are the things you put an AI agent on right now. When you have what we call open systems, information changes all the time, like within departments, between departments, or between companies, there's a lot of noise on the communication there. And it becomes more risky. An AI agent is not necessarily right across different layers of hierarchy, but more effective within the same layer of hierarchy. So for example, this was a Chinese hospital, amazing. You have your doctors, you have your nurses, you have administrators. You're there, you need to get your medication. The AI agents are basically robots picking up the medication within the logistical space that has been identified. Everyone knows where which medication is. And people, nurses, doctors only have to push the button and say, oh, it's this medication, and everything's being delivered the whole time. You don't have to run anymore. It's very easy. It's automation serving you to provide better service to your customer, in this case, the patients. And it saves time for a doctor to pay more attention now to the patient.
Do we have a productivity crisis on our hands? The definition of productivity that is most adhered to is unsurprisingly from McKinsey. And it's sort of this idea of, in a nutshell, productivity is what's going to drive your bottom line. If you took the European stance, it would be, okay, AI is going to give everyone, instead of a 2-month holiday over the summer, a 3-month holiday over the summer because we can get our work done more quickly. And it might be something that's more aligned with, we'll get even more work done every single day. Do you think it's a case of company by company figuring out what's our primary objective of succeeding with AI? I think the doctor one is a great example because there, I think, more human interaction as a result of automated AI work is the best outcome. Or is it just that it's human interaction instead of dealing with your inbox?
Now, I like what you just said about US and Europe. Now, I believe that both of them will ultimately fail in creating the right value with AI for humanity on the long term. The reason why I'm saying this is, with Europe, that's a status quo then, because you're happy with what you're producing. And it's the old idea that was there in the 60s and 70s already. Robots are going to make sure we only work 4 hours a day, which never materialized. Because if you look at the discussions about retirement and pensions, we have to work longer than ever. So what is happening here? With the US, it's like, yeah, we'll just burn out people even more. Ultimately, that will fall flat as well because we're underutilizing the potential of AI. AI should be there to actually uplift humanity, which means we need to create these new jobs. Like you said, that's the responsibility of organizations. Now, you have to think about, let's say, the current jobs that we all know. AI will always get better. And it may well be that we end up very soon at 95% of jobs technically could be done by AI. Now, you see the problem. Are we helping humanity? No. If we don't change in terms of looking at what jobs are and what the new jobs should be, we're basically on a road to 0% human participation.
I mean, I saw, interestingly, I think it was last week, you posted on LinkedIn that Demore McKim has just been recognized as having one of the leading MBAs with an AI track in it. How do you go about advising people who are maybe only going to be in the workforce in what seems like a relatively short amount of time, 3-4 years from now, but where we can comfortably estimate that AI will look radically different to what it does today? Here are the skills, competencies, frameworks for thinking, or traditional hard skills that you've gained during your time that we think is going to most set you up for this 50-year career.
Thank you for referring to our business school. The reason why we've been betting a lot on it is the leaders of tomorrow, they need to be socially responsible leaders who can take different perspectives. Judgment is something an AI doesn't have. So we want our leaders to have better moral compasses and at least have a reflection there. So seeing bigger pictures, asking why questions. Second thing is really the resilience. You have to learn to adapt, which is the lifelong learning as well. And this fits very much what we say. The economy of tomorrow is a feeling economy. The impact of hard skills will go down and the impact of soft skills will go up. This is where you see where schools are moving. So we will have a STEM designated MBA from next year on. Thinking like an engineer is great. Have design thinking, yeah, and be quant oriented. But I call this STEMpathy. It needs to go together with your soft skills, and that's the leadership. So the future of education, especially for business leaders, is STEMpathy. STEM and empathy together.
Do you think we always talk about AI ethics from the perspective of the models rather than the people implementing them? But is there a crash course you would give leaders in terms of this is how you can ethically implement AI within your teams or organizations?
That's needed. It's just simply needed. Look, of course, tech companies are not going to help you with this. At one point, Google had ethics as a service. I literally met them people who said, yeah, but ethics, that's now an AI issue. No, AI can solve this themselves. We just need better data. I'm like, yeah, but better data. No, data are a reflection of reality. Humans act like this. My argument there is always, we wrote a paper about this, is that's great. AI amplifies our biases. But you know what? Use AI as an education tool for humans to learn about their biases. It's great. I don't see a problem there, to be honest. Because you can never de-bias data completely. It's impossible because it's based on the principle of what is the observation of reality there. The thing is, humans can be blind to their own biases, but that's because it's unconsciously. But when you make people aware of it, they can learn. So AI can be that learning tool. If we use it as a learning, then it's important that business leaders today basically learn to have moral awareness, recognize moral dilemmas in reality.
It's a prompt that I saw earlier this week. It was to the effect of every single task is created from a first-person subject matter expert and then critiqued by a third-person perspective. I thought it was quite an interesting feedback loop of getting AI to come up with the most logically sound or factually knowledge-based sound insight and then critique any shortcomings it actually had. So what you were getting back as an ultimate response was one that already had a measure of balance built into it.
That's where tech companies since last year have started to say AI can reason, yes and no, because this is basically a reasoning process. But what hasn't changed is, yes, they can work, for example, based on counterfactuals. We worked a lot on introducing these counterfactuals that they say, oh, it's one thing, and then provide reasons for the other. And because they're rational, they can do so without emotions. So it's an amazing tool to get a balanced perception. But there's still two things. We still need to identify a problem because we're the participants in the real world, and we still need to interpret. That doesn't change. No matter how advanced they are, if we become replaced and we don't upskill ourselves in what we're really good at the end of the day, that's reductionistic, because then AI will determine what is useful and interpret this is useful for us. I don't think AI is there yet. They can't do it. And second of all, we shouldn't allow it either.
There's three things that I think I'd love to end with, and it's, what are your rapid fire 3 tips for managers for 2025 on just taking the next steps and getting things right? The 3 tips for knowledge workers, anyone on a team, anybody who's coming into an office every day and sitting behind a desk to make sure that they're leaning into this change. And then ultimately, how you would see 12 months from now, the best case scenario looking for where we are as a result of having pushed things forward.
This is for both knowledge workers and managers. I would say, first of all, AI is not an option anymore. You have to accept that. Go out, experiment, learn. That's the first tip. The second one, then for managers, is really make AI adoption a collective participative learning process as much as possible, because that will facilitate your communication, that will facilitate feedback, and that will facilitate your people management where you need the talents. And if you don't have them, train them or hire them. The third point I'm going to emphasize is, again, AI is not rewriting leadership. Many of these behaviors of leadership remain the same. It just needs to be put in the context of AI. So those are 3 things. There's no point in being a human calculator anymore. What I mean by this is, don't adopt your way of working to the way a computer works. Retrain yourself, find ways of what an AI can do, and make yourself better in those things. That's where I said the feeling economy. Your soft skills need to be there, but it's really the critical thinking, the perspective taking, the judgment itself, and what you can do with that knowledge. I think that's going to be extremely important, and leverage AI in making your work more efficiently. See where it fits and where it doesn't fit with what you do. And where are we going to be in 12 months from now? One thing that's still going to stay there is next year, we're still going to be talking about AI as a business transformation. How are we going to do it? How do we create most value? Are we going to see better models? Yes. But we're also going to see that AI is going to be driven into discussions like sustainability, the environment, energy, which is already happening. What I hope is that we're going to have a more serious discussion about ethics and regulation. In the US, an era of deregulation has arrived. It's going to be interesting at the global level because you have different models now. US is deregulation. Europe has a lot of regulation, and very specifically. China is very principle-based, has a certain rules, and is basically state-based. So what I think the big discussion definitely next year is going to be regulation and human-centered approaches of AI. So again, the ethics is going to be more important than ever.
David, thank you so much for the time today.
No worries. I very much enjoyed it, Paul.
And that's it for this episode of Great Expectations. If you want to find out more information about implementing the right AI solutions in your workplace, see more episodes, or find our latest research, go to jabra.com. I'm Paul. Thanks for listening.